COVID-19. But then because of this, some sort of paralysis on part of global multilateral institutions or even regional institutions or organizations, we find that this global governance also has taken a hit. On the contrary, what we have been seeing that a lot of moves, counter moves are taking place. It appears as if a new kind of world order is likely to come into being, where it will be a question of G2 powers only. China will be in a hurry to get associated only with so-called United States of America, or if given the chance, China would also be in a hurry because of the kind of policies it has been pursuing in recent decades or so-called 21st century world order, that it would not mind becoming number one sole superpower at international level or so-called global level. So it is in this kind of backdrop we have to see and analyze for ourselves the emerging trends. Yes, scholars have been talking about, so for my presentation goes, I have used terms like changing geopolitics, or what you call entire, what you call, my thought would be revolving around these theories of international relations, something like what you call realism or neo-realism, or by and large, when we use the term geopolitics, we find that it is a sort of revival of those old past theories once again, especially if we were to name that famous geographer, British geographer, who presented a paper in 1904. That is what you call, the paper was titled as it's a theory of heartland theory given by Mackinder, right? It is basically, we find that we are entering into sort of order where emphasis, focus is getting shifted towards more of geopolitics, more of geoeconomics, or more of balance of power system. Actually. So it is in this kind of what you call framework, I am supposed to share with you people my thought, whether in which direction our China-India-Nepal relations are likely to move, right? Or what kind of changes that have been that have taken place, and we need to remain concerned about. Undoubtedly, China has tried to emerge as a power, right? And it is in a manner trying to bully the adjoining neighboring countries. No doubt about China's behavior, which is not getting appreciated from many corners of the world. And that's why we have a situation that China stands in a manner isolated vis-a-vis the rest of the world. We have seen the precipitation of crisis in South China Sea region. We have been seeing the precipitation of crisis in East China Sea region, or we have seen most recently precipitation of crisis in neighborhood of India itself, that is close to LAC or especially Leh Ladakh area. But then is it that China is what you call getting involved in the most hurried manner in the name of geopolitics, or taking care of what you call getting a new route, so-called in the name of BRI initiative, in the name of one belt, one road, or various multidimensional aspects of this BRI, CPEC, the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, or when it comes to the question of Nepal, Nepal's preparedness on its part to emerge as a bridge between India, China, emerging economies, or golden bridge as a between, or transit economy kind of role on part of Nepal. But then one has to take into one's account that why this kind of behavior is being experienced on part of China. China is not only, it has picked up some sort of a quarrel or some sort of confrontationist attitude with the countries of South Asia. Undoubtedly, it is trying to get its influence increased in its own area. At the same time, it will resist an increase of influence of countries like India when it came to the question of India's Act East policy, or what you call India's India moving closer towards the countries of ASEAN, ASEAN countries actually. But on the contrary, we have been seeing most recently in post-COVID-19 period only, China tried to mobilize countries like Pakistan, countries like Afghanistan, countries like Nepal, and very interestingly, only country which was never ever approached, perhaps, it was India. So there is a move on part of both China as well as India also. Earlier, India was of the view that within the South Asian framework, Pakistan can be isolated and we can start looking towards BIMSTEC area. We can start looking towards Indo-Pacific region, etc. But then now it is a very interesting thing that has happened most recently. That is China calling the meeting of these four important countries of South Asia, where India itself got isolated. That China is all set to take this risk of isolating India, because there have been several writings which appeared during the course of COVID-19 that the time had come, India need to be taught a lesson, or what you call, India has to be cut to its size, whereas the theory which explains the behavior of China at the global level, that yes, there is a concept of so-called Thucydides trap, and we have writings of several important American scholars telling that a conflict is bound to happen between a rising power and an established power. So if that is the scenario between China and United States of America, that China is a rising power and United States of America is a established power, and it is in hurry to displace or replace the existing established power, the United States of America, then same can be replicated in case of within Asian continent, that over a period of time, India also has realized that we have to prepare ourselves past last 20 years or so. Undoubtedly, when India went nuclear during Prime Minister Vajpayee's period, and China became furious that what made India to go nuclear. Rather, I have one small anecdote to share with you people. We were in China, same Fudan University. I would be glad to see Professor Shen Dingley physically if he appears today with us, where we were questioned directly that how come India perceived China as enemy number one. Now, 20 years down the line, we find that those narratives have what you call moved to the center stage, that entire discourse, entire narrative onto the part of Indian government or intellectuals or academia or members of civil society organizations. Now that's with that kind of mass euphoria of all kinds of boycotts and all we have been experiencing here. But then why so? Only because China stands what you call engaged with countries not only in South Asia, not only in Southeast Asian region or Pacific region, it also stands what you call involved with the countries like of Central Asian region. And when I talked about the Mackinder's theory, that heartland theory, actually, his theory was focused towards the one who rules upon the Eurasian region, they will only rule upon the world. So China is of the view that it thinks that history is on their side, and they must not hesitate from taking what you call assuming the number one position at the world level, and for that ruthlessly they are going ahead with the geopolitical things in the name of BRI, in the name of one belt, one road. Otherwise, one can imagine why China single-handedly is trying to act as a boss when it came to the question of BRI initiative involving almost 70 countries of the world. But now in recent timings, many scholarly papers have been published stating that the countries who are part of BRI or who got bulldozed without sharing, getting shared a lot of information with them, now they feel suffocated, or some sort of financial debt trap kind of thing is into practice. And China is almost set to behave like those colonial powers, the way in 18th century Britishers or Western powers tried to form colonies, tried to form satellite territories all over the world. Americans did it more or less more than 100 countries where American bases are there or American soldiers are stationed as on date. So is it that we are entering into a global world order in 21st century where China would be the only power which will have its presence all over the world, all over the continents in the name of BRI or OBR? Otherwise, as Dr. Baba said, that the OBR's GDP would be almost more than the total economy of the South Asia. And if I were to assume the economy of GDP of India all alone $3 trillion, so it means more than $3 trillion are likely to be spent, invested by one country, that is China. So undoubtedly, this country has been pursuing onto the path of confrontation. In case of Tajikistan, we saw it laid a claim upon Pamir region of the Central Asian region. It also started another dispute with Russia when it mentioned about the historical arguments that Vladivostok should belong to them, or we have been seeing that most recently China also has taken certain steps whereby it has tried to what you call evolve a sort of relationship with Iran. It has tried to what you call develop its very strong relationship with Turkey. So one can say certainly, despite all advantages, all benefits accruing out of this entire BRI initiative, whether India is part of that or India may not be part of that, isn't it? But still, one has apprehensions that more or less China's entire focus is oriented towards getting more involved towards Mediterranean Sea region, Red Sea region, and having crossed these areas right through Central Asia, Persian Gulf, and enter into Europe. And of course, that kind of connectivity they would like to establish. But then, how can a country like India or Nepal remain non-concerned about this entire development? Because it is not only talking about BRI initiative, it is also talking about revival of a polar Silk Route. So via space, via Arctic, isn't it? It is also talking about revival of a maritime Silk Route via Indian Ocean region, etc. So it is these reasons that of late now, because of this misadventure on part of this country in India's Ladakh region, a viewpoint has come to the forefront that unless India talks into what you call with the strength of power, perhaps China would not be ready to listen to a country like India. It will intentionally try to what you call bypass India for times to come. Then talking about what are the what you call prospects of cooperation on part of us and so-called another country with whom we share very historical kind of relationship, that is Nepal. Though India, China, Nepal, no discourse would be would stand completed if we don't bring into our picture the civilizational links between India, Nepal, China, historical links between India, China, Nepal. So it is because of these reasons that Nepal always was very upbeat about getting this idea of trilateralism, or what you call revived. On several occasions, leaders of Nepal, they made use of this term that Nepal is ready to move from the paradigm of so-called acting as a yum between two bigger rocks. On one northern side, China, a major power, and on the southern side, India as another power. So it was certainly time for a sovereign country like Nepal, which is a republic now. But then some distressing trends have also happened between India and Nepal in recent past. Though Nepal was the only country which got visited twice by Indian Prime Minister, sort of civilizational links were supposed to have got revived. But then, unfortunately, some of the developments that have taken place, it has given sufficient grounds for Indian leadership to question or cast some sort of aspersions on Nepal, what you call, whatever reasons they must have been on part of Nepal. So when we talk about this idea of trilateralism, of course, this important what you call agreements which have been finalized between China and Nepal in the name of Trans-Himalayan Corridor or South Corridor actually, or this undergoing under implementation project of BCIM becoming BBIN actually. That is Bangladesh, China, India, Myanmar connectivity route being extended, where it will be what you call Bhutan, Bangladesh, India, and Nepal kind of connectivity. And via Nepal, there will be a chance that Nepal would be this Nepal's corridor, economic corridor, could get connected with the CPEC corridor, and via CPEC corridor, again it will be get further extended, and what you call things would reach up to not only Gulf region, Iran, Iraq, or for that matter Afghanistan or Central Asia. Things would get materialized up to Europe actually. So that kind of proposal is under implementation. But then a word of caution on part of smaller neighbors also, that neighbors have to act in good faith. They know it for sure that what you call, you can change your choose your friends, change your friends, but not the neighbors. So in recent timings, it was a matter of concern that some sort of pronouncements getting made, despite the fact that domestic needs, political needs may have been there. But in the era of social media and all, this all statements, the way they get what you call encashed, or by the way it gets presented, that now India will have to remain prepared for not only fighting two-front war, rather it has to be a three-front war. So not only between Pakistan and what you call China, it has also to be a small country like Nepal. So these things could have been avoided. They were not in very good taste, and they did raise some sort of apprehension that is it that country, a matured country like Nepal, republican country, sovereign country like Nepal should have come out with these kind of things. A country which has a long history of having remained neutral between two bigger neighbors, as I said to people, between China and India. But neutrality does not mean that neighbors start taking sides, actually. So these things have to be taken into consideration whenever we talk about these prospects for trilateralism between India, China, Nepal. At the same time, China did show some amount of haste in casting doubt about India's motives, that India is now part of a US-led camp or something sort of that. But India again has a long history that India has always tried to manage its relationship vis-a-vis all bigger powers, whether it was a question of United States of America, whether it was a question of a former Soviet Union or present Russia, or even it is a question of post-1988 People's Republic of China, actually. So this was the beauty on part of India, having the propounder of non-alignment, or again it is being said that now India again need to move further from the non-alignment era of past 60s, 70s, 80s or so. Time has come that non-alignment should be experimented with the concept of multi-alignment, and everything was almost okay on part of Indian government, that we were enjoying very good relationship with China, almost 100 billion, close to $100 billion of annual trade with China. Then of course, similar thing with the US, similar thing with the European Union, similar thing with the countries of Southeast Asia. But of late, China started casting doubts because of all those their narratives, something sort of that it should be not only Asia century, it should be almost Chinese centuries or peaceful rise of China. These were some of the serious setbacks. So what I can say to conclude with these things, that though idea of trilateralism is not bad, the countries of the world, they have moved in different directions. Bilateralism, trilateralism, we have also floated a new concept, quadrilateral arrangements, multilateral arrangements, regional arrangements, etc. But then all these three countries, they need to be very, very careful about each other's sensitivities. And certainly we have seen that post Galwan period, post this Ladakh misadventure, the kind of things in the name of de-escalation and disengagement, even there lot of doubts are being cast about the real motive of China. China is all set to make sure that whether they like it or not, they must push their CPEC through Indian sovereign territory. Not to go into those details, they may have reasons to say that this post August 5 developments in Jammu and Kashmir, India wants to take back Aksai Chin from them. That question was not there. Our foreign minister flew to China's capital, and these all fears were allayed that yes, China, it is not the motive of that. The way they are trying to fixerize this thing. But then China was hell bent upon. Otherwise, 18 1-to-1 meeting between Indian head of the government and Chinese president, and that if that were not to yield any kind of result, then members of academia or civil society organizations, they have to say in which direction we are going. Isn't it that this theory, history they want to replicate, that it has to be Chinese century only because China used to rule once upon a day, and that to some sort of misinterpretation of historical facts, the way this 9-dash line, etc. For that matter, then India also, that's why you saw one narrative getting started in India, that get a Rama circuit developed in this part of the world, all kinds of things. But that will not help either of these countries. They need to make sure that their behavior should not go against the global norms. Their behavior should not go against the international relations norms. We have to have faith in multilateral bodies. We have to have faith in those bodies which have the long experience of remaining there and helping countries to sort out their mutual differences. So this is how I look at this ongoing relationship between China and Nepal relations. I can overhear organizers, they would like me to end my talk. So if I am present here, if there are certain queries and all, I'll be happy to answer those queries to my audience. So my thanks to the organizers for having given me some time to share my views regarding this ongoing in this part of the world during post-COVID-19 period. And I congratulate them for having taken this initiative of bringing scholars from, we say, South Asia, or from connectivity between South Asia and East Asian scholars. So thanks a lot to all the organizers, please. I take leave from.
Thank you very much, sir. You rightly talked about the changing geopolitics in the region, as BRI is seen as a tool of, changing the entire geopolitics in the region. And you rightly suggested that the neighbors should also take this in mind, and they have to be sensitive about each other's goals, and they have to care for each other's sensitivity. So we can later discuss on this. Next, I would like to invite Gaurav Bhattarai. Mr. Gaurav Bhattarai is a faculty at the Department of International Relations and Diplomacy under Tribhuvan University. As an international relations scholar, his areas of interest are small state security, foreign policy of rising powers, India, China, Nepal, South Asian studies, and strategic studies. So I request Gaurav Bhattarai to start his presentation. Sir, you have 20 minutes of time. Please stick to the time.
Thank you very much. I'll try. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Hello?
Yes, you are audible,
Yes,
Gaurav, but your video is moving. Just check.
Okay, thank you. So we are talking about the opportunities and challenges brought by cross-border connectivity projects. While the borders are still closed and uncertainty looms large over its resumption, owing to the unprecedented impact brought by COVID-19. So, apprehending the same fact, the objective of my paper today will be to assess the status of the cross-border connectivity projects between Nepal and India and Nepal and China, and secondly, to identify the challenges in their realization. So, to further mull over how far cross-border connectivity projects with India and China have helped Nepal to fulfill its connectivity-driven prosperity, will cross-border connectivity projects with India and China provide a kind of aid to Nepal's proposal of trilateralism or not, and whether cross-border connectivity projects with India and China really help to make Nepal land-linked from a landlocked country. Let's start with why Nepal really needs connectivity-driven strategy. Here, national, sovereign, and regional contexts need to be considered. First, Nepal is a landlocked and mountainous country, and therefore faces high trading costs. Improved connectivity would reduce such costs and promote internal trade, investment, and economic growth. Secondly, Nepal is strategically located between two economic giants, India and China. Hence, Nepal has the potential to benefit greatly by improving connectivity with both its neighbors through transport, energy, and telecommunication projects. It may help Nepal by reducing trading costs and to overcome the disadvantages of a small population and small markets. And thirdly, and I think most importantly as well, a connectivity-driven strategy is not a new one for Nepal. In the past, Nepal was strategically located on the southwestern Silk Road, which started in the People's Republic of China's Yunnan province, then passed through Myanmar to India and China, and looked back through Tibet and Yunnan. Nepal was precisely an interport for trade, mainly between India and the People's Republic of China on the Southern Silk Road. After a gap of about 5 centuries today, the case for reviving the Southern Silk Road has become strong, and Nepal has an important role to play. A connectivity-driven strategy for Nepal, together with ongoing efforts to revive the Southern Silk Road project, would benefit all countries along the Southern Silk Road. So, next.
Hello.
I think we have lost Gaurav.
Yeah, we have lost him. Should we wait for some time, for a minute or two?
Yes, let's wait for a minute. Let's see if he gets back. Can we message him that your network is gone?
Yeah.
Who's our next speaker? We can go for the next speaker now.
The next speaker is Balasubramanian C.
Is he there?
Yes. Yeah, I'm present.
Should we start with, or should we wait? Ma'am, is it okay to start with sir? Yeah.
Yes, because I don't know whether he's going to come back or what is wrong with his net.
Okay, so what we can do is we can, listen to Gaurav later on.
Gaurav Bhattarai.
Yeah, let us first start with.
I think he's back. Someone said he's back. Dr. Gaurav Bhattarai is back.
Okay.
If we can't see him, we can't hear him. Hello, Gaurav, you're there? No, we can't.
Yeah, am I audible?
Yeah, right.
So
You're
we
audible.
missed a lot of your, yeah. So now you can just start, but we can't see you.
Okay.
Yeah. Please start. And I think you are not visible to us.
Okay, just let me make a brief presentation now. Just short one, I think. So just I'll try to look into the status of cross-border connectivity project between Nepal and India and Nepal and China, and just try to identify the challenges in the realization. So particularly starting with whether Nepal really needs a connectivity-driven project. Yes, I think that there are three important reasons why Nepal needs a connectivity-driven strategy, and the first one is that Nepal is a landlocked and mountainous country. Feri goya. Chhod de. के खाले तोरी नेट रहेछ गइसक्यो अब के भन्नु नि गइसक्यो भने नेट छोड्दै यिनीहरुलाई डिस्टर्ब गरे जस्तो हुन्छ अब छोड्दै
Gaurav, we are having a lot of disturbance from your side.
Hello.
I think we can have him in the next speaker. We'll start with the next speaker first.
Sure. Okay. So let us move on to the next speaker, Mr. Balasubramanian C. He is a research analyst at the Chennai Center for China Studies, Chennai. His areas of interest are India-China relations, Indian Ocean region, geoeconomics, security and strategic studies. So now the topic that he's talking about is India-China-Nepal Trilateral cooperation. So now I ask Mr. Balasubramanian C to.
Thank you. Am I audible? Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible. Yes, you're audible.
Yeah, thank you very much. I thank the organizers, especially Dr. Geeta Kochhar ma'am, for inviting me, and Chennai Center for China Studies, and my director, Commodore R.S. Vasan sir, for giving me this opportunity. So, as already discussed, the area that I would like to discuss today is about the Great Himalayan Cooperation, the India-Nepal-China Trilateral Cooperation. So, majorly, I would like to emphasize on what are the challenges constraining to make this happen. So a paradigm shift is happening in the Himalayan geopolitics, which is dictating a foreign policy with each nation like India, China, as well as Nepal, guided by their own national interest, seeking to accelerate the growth and development, including while seeking in the pursuit of accelerating growth and development, they have been looking for establishing connectivity among several other areas of cooperation to overcome the constraints of geography. So South Asia as a region, we all know it is a very natural region owing to linkages with culture and history and geography. But however, it is also facing challenges like socio-economic and political challenges in its own divisions. So I would like to take you all to 2014, where the then Chinese ambassador to India, Wei Wei, he proposed a novel idea. It was called the Trans-Himalayan Regionalism through trans-border cooperation with India. And in the grand idea, he proposed and he called for a trans-Himalayan economic growth region that would be led by the two countries of both India as well as China. So then quickly coming back to 2020, realizing the potential of this cooperation, the Chinese ambassador to Nepal, Hu Yanqi in Jan 2020, proposed the China +2, which is often very popularly dubbed as the 2+1 framework, as a concept of, as a model for cooperation, which was also mooted by Beijing as essentially a trilateral cooperation. The same thing was also discussed with our Indian Prime Minister, Narendra Modi ji, in the last year the very famous informal Mamallapuram summit, which was also discussed and mooted. So the concept itself, it moots both India and China to play a leading role in the development of Nepal. And it was initially the identified areas of cooperation. What they identified was infrastructure, telecommunication, training courses, among several others to begin with. The underlying idea was that a stable and prosperous Nepal is in the best interest of both India, China, as well as the larger South Asian region. And after, when this idea was proposed and mooted, several analysts in India, they viewed it as, like it's a very grand idea. New Delhi should seek more details on this very interesting idea and offer India's vision for productive engagement with the Tibetan frontier and everything, where China is reaching out to connect the larger periphery, connecting connectivity, trade, and investment links, and etc. Next, I would like to come to the feasibility of this model itself, the trilateral cooperation between India, Nepal, and China, with the model, the economic corridor, and its implication, because this is seen to be a part of the Chinese BRI, which can be the same as CPOK-EC. It can be dubbed as CNEC, the China-Nepal Economic Corridor, as a parallel to the China-Pakistan occupied Kashmir Economic Corridor. The rationale that China has is that the China's proposal is also due to the India's very firm stance against India not signing to the BRI. Because China is also very well aware of the concern that without India's participation in the BRI, it cannot be truly successful in South Asia. This is also very well known to China. So China was trying to seek India's approval, which is very difficult considering the Chinese reluctance to respect India's sovereignty and territorial integrity. So at least China is in a quest for at least seeking, even if you don't approve, India's benign indifference. So interestingly, one thing has to be, what can be noted is that in the case of Pakistan and Sri Lanka, China did not consider consultations with India. Considering consultations with India as a reversal of, it can be seen as a reversal of China's stance, realizing the significance of India in the region. So historically, what we can see, the traditional motivation for China in the traditional Western frontiers like Tibet was to insulate Tibet so that it ensures China's rule in Tibet. And it remains uncontested and to avoid destabilization within and outside. So this proposal is basically a very new piece by China. And even we can see the Chinese Foreign Minister Yang Yi, he has issued statements like seeing Nepal as a transit state and as a bridge between India and China. It has to be particularly noted that there was also a proposed railway line, which is also a very costly affair, a multi-billion-dollar investment, which is both economically as well as technologically challenging. Falling short of unviable, the cost to benefit ratio for China to commit such a mammoth resources also merits a deeper study for a larger rationale. So India can be brought into this fold, considering India's influence as a major power in South Asia, which even China recognizes and realizes. The ultimate aim is to reach the Indian market as an area of interaction, which would ultimately needs India's approval and assuaging India's concerns like sovereignty and territorial integrity, because any Chinese interaction with Nepal, it is going to land at the doorstep of India and its border. And to see from the Nepal side, Nepal has also voiced concern about the larger trade imbalance that it has with China, because after this economic corridor, once it gets materialized, there are more chances of the cheap goods, Chinese goods flooding the Nepalese market, which is not viable for the Nepalese economy also. So the concept actually, as it's a triangular cooperation, works in a very triangular fashion where India as well as Nepal has to reassess and revalue China's role in the proposed in the region of the trans-Himalayan space. So for the new picture in South Asia, it has to be inclusive, it has to be rule-based, which can assure a win-win-win cooperation for all the countries participating, and the negotiation. The points to be noted is that are Nepal and India ready for that negotiating points? So in recent years, they can also be seen where there has been a gradual shift in China's focus actually from the eastern seaboard to the southwest China, such as focusing on regions like Tibet, Qinghai, Guangzhou, Sichuan, Kunming, and Xinjiang, which are all surrounding the immediate neighborhood of Nepal. So thus, all these points to one fact that Nepal is assuming a new geostrategic eminence between India as well as China. And some significant projects like the construction of the Karakoram Highway, railing from Beijing to Lhasa, and then extending it to Lhasa towards Nepal, Kathmandu. So all these are some of things that support the idea. So it could be very safely expected that the trans-Himalayan regionalism, which is being mooted, China and India, and China especially, is very keen to have a strong north-south connectivity through Nepal. That would vastly expand China's access from China to the Hindi-speaking states like UP, Bihar, etc. So in the all this entire gamut of connectivity projects, I think Nepal is seen to play a very significant and important role. And although much is not being heard in the Indian media about it, Nepal also expressed its willingness to act as a Himalayan land bridge between the Central, South, and Southeast Asia. And Nepal officials also said, there were statements made, Nepal said they would welcome the southern one belt and one road and the extension of the Chinese railway to the Kathmandu and Lumbini. And in 2010, then Prachananda, as Prime Minister of Nepal, he coined the concept of trilateral strategic relations, which involved India, China, as well as Nepal. So taking advantage of the Middle East and West Highway and linking it with Uttarakhand and Sikkim to create a very greater Himalayan economic corridor. And even much has happened in the debates and deliberations in all the countries. Academic and geopolitical scholars have also analyzed the case of Raswa district bordering China as an example of Nepal's trans-Himalayan partnership with China. So this has become very significant central debate to the Sino-Nepal relations in the context of bilateral investments, China making huge investments in the hydropower and the transportation infrastructure. So the implications are it not only enhances Beijing influence in the Nepal through construction of roads and dams, but also the Chinese developments, projects and everything, it paid dividends for as in cash or kind for local citizens, contracts for Chinese firms, legitimacy for Kathmandu leadership, as well as diplomatic leverage for Beijing and Nepal in the long run, serving to restructure the strategic relations between China, India, as well as Nepal. There is also another instance of where interstate bilateral relationship around investment for development as well as for infrastructure building. It does not contain any kind of regionalistic content. Rather, it is used more in a conventional diplomacy style and not in the context of new regionalism. While the Chinese aid is also welcomed by elites, there is no guarantee that the local population see it in the same way. There is also some kind of phobia that exists among the people of both the countries. So concluding all these aspects, it raises more number of questions rather than answers like, say, for example, is China genuinely considering to open up Tibet? Is it genuinely considering to open up its communication networks like transport, railroad, railway links, which would assure the Tibetans a free mobility and passage? Will it allow the Tibetans to move freely? So despite all these things, the current structure of the economic cooperation through BRI is spearheaded as a pet project by the Chinese President Xi Jinping, is sounding more of a political statement rather as an economic proposition. So what needs to be important to be seen is that is China really ready to assess the concerns like flooding of cheap Chinese goods into market like India and other larger concerns? So will it guarantee a proposal of genuine economic cooperation and assuring a win-win situation for all the three countries, considering the present structure of supply chains, the production structure, and the quantum of trade, the imbalance and the quantum of trade that each country have with China? So these are all the questions that has to be assuaged and first addressed by China. And then coming back, what happened in 2017 was Nepal signed the BRI agreement, and it continues to have a very cordial relationship with China. And after 2019, after the informal summit in Mamallapuram, the Chinese president visited Nepal, and close to 20 agreements were signed. Most important was that close to one important was about conducting a feasibility study for China-built railway line access across the Himalaya crescent from Lhasa to Kathmandu and beyond. So interestingly, out of all the 20 agreements that were signed, 4 agreements was related to the security-related agreement that promoted greater engagement between the security agencies of both Nepal as well as China, particularly among the police forces, the intelligence outfit, the border management organization, and as well as the entire law enforcement machinery and authorities. So it is also noteworthy that the outcome of Chinese President Xi Jinping's visit to Nepal, it also set lines the China's neighborhood policy, which was enunciated by the President Xi Jinping in his 2013 speech, where he said that diplomacy in this area must serve the two centenary goals and a national rejuvenation. To conclude, the last line he mentioned was to further security cooperation, develop a comprehensive security strategy with the neighboring countries. So just giving a bit of introspection and analyzing the President Xi Jinping's speeches, it can be observed that Beijing now is in need of a new strategy to improve its entire gamut of management of relations with its countries on its periphery, because it is slowly trying to encounter increasing tensions with the neighboring states. So maybe Beijing has felt it is necessary to deepen friendly relations, first through economic cooperation, and then what we call the Beijing's charm offensive, and then go beyond the economic strategy, where China builds a security ties with its neighbor. So interestingly, in the same speech, Xi Jinping also proclaimed that regional cooperation must expand from mutual benefit to shared belief. This is a key word, shared belief, norms of conduct for the whole region, which can be Beijing, China is on a moral mission to improve the world through its ideas, aspirations, norms, socializing the regional countries to build, as what Xi Jinping grandly called the community of a shared destiny. Indeed, these ideas resonate in many of the agreements between between Nepal and China. And also one important thing that has to be noted, there was a mutual legal assistance in crime matters, which was signed between both Nepal and China, which is nothing just as a precursor to an extradition treaty. So China has also committed support to the establishment of a multidisciplinary university and a Confucius Institute at Tribhuvan University. So all these points about where China sees Nepal as a very significant and central to the idea. And there should also be realized that despite Nepal's closeness with China, it is the Indian market with China is ultimately targeting through its direct transportation facilities and the north-south corridors that is to be built around Nepal. So what remains to be seen is that from Indian side, whatever Xi has promised and seen Nepal as a conduit between China and India, it is important that it must not end as an unequal relationship by chasing the grander dream or vision of a trans-Himalayan regionalism, something that both India as well as Nepal need to think out for. It remains to be seen how Nepal-China relationship would take place in the coming decades, and how far it would be functional for bringing the greater trans-Himalayan regionalism. As of now, the developments, what is happening between Sino-Nepal relations as well as India-China does not actually augur well or suit for the greater idea of China, Nepal, India-Nepal-China trilateralism. So on Indian side, India should also try to reset its relations with Nepal, founded on natural, geographic and cultural linkages between both. So India has not, since 2010, after the Prachananda has proposed, India has not responded back seriously, nor it has looked seriously at the Chinese ambassador's way ideas of a trans-Himalayan regionalism. Just as India's security concerns have made Indian officials to hesitate about the BCIMEC proposals, despite having occasionally showed interest, India's view of Himalayas as a natural barrier has also kept India from discouraging or not making that much encouraging infrastructural developments across the Himalayas. Indeed, India has been unresponsive, it has to be said, but due to various reasons, including issues related to the BRI, the CPOK, EC, the Doklam standoff, and the recent Galwan Valley incident, there is a perceived threat of renewed Chinese support to other factors of factionalism. So is it really a possibility? If you look at it, the history says that both India and North China has not been that much effective in forging regional identity. The best example is SAARC, and as well as both BBIM and BIMSTEC, it still remains in a limbo. Yet the greater trans-Himalayan regionalism indeed is a possibility if the China and the Southeast Asian states join together in a common endeavor to help each other with well-intentioned leaders in both the politics as well as civil society, who are capable to go beyond the constraints and irritants like nationalism with the capacity to define, identify, and serve benevolent national interest. They must be willing to concede other sensitivity, especially China has to be willing to concede to other sensitivity and make compromises, behave with utmost respect for rules, institutions, and procedure, and as well as harbor a vision for a far, wide, and working for peace. So in the case of trans-Himalayan regionalism, it has to go beyond the rhetoric, and to make it happen, it is first necessary for us to take stock of the reality as what is happening. To do that, China has to address India's concern. As a leader, it will be China's responsibility to create mutual trust among all. This is not impossible. Definitely, it can do. Especially China, as a bigger and more powerful and resourceful member of such a possible region, should tame its tendency as well as label its core interests and whatever claims that it has contested by its neighbor. On our part, India also has with more optimism, which would also mean that India must not privilege distrust. After all, distrust is something that has to be preserved and not only a problem, but to be overcome and addressed. So with a set of all these ideas that are set for, the moral should be through identification of the set.
Hello.
Hello. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you concluded?
Yeah, I have concluded.
Okay. So so we saw this presentation where he has talked about the 2+1 framework that China had suggested, and also the Trans-Himalayan region economic growth region as per se. How China wants to get into the Indian market through the BRI project. So it's an interesting idea, and he has also given some measures that can be taken by all the three countries in order to increase trust between all the three countries, so as to solve the problems in this trilateral relationship. So now we lost connection with Gaurav Bhattarai, but he is back now. So may I ask him to continue with his presentation?
Thank you very much, and all apologies that I got lost. My connection was poor, but now it is stable.
Okay, sir, you're not visible actually to us.
Yes, now am I audible?
Yeah, you are visible and audible. Yeah.
Thank you. Just let me resume from where I just left earlier. So my paper, the aim of my paper is to assess the status of cross-border connectivity project between Nepal and India and Nepal and China, and to identify the challenges in their realization. I have just tried to address the three questions or three research questions to say. The first one is how far cross-border connectivity projects with India and China have helped Nepal to fulfill its connectivity-driven prosperity. And secondly, will cross-border connectivity projects with India and China provide a kind of aid to Nepal's proposal of trilateralism? And third one is whether cross-border connectivity projects with India and China really help to make Nepal land-linked from a landlocked country. So these are the three research questions that the paper thrives on. And the paper exactly begins with whether Nepal really needs a connectivity-driven strategy. And I find that there are three particular reasons why Nepal exactly needs a connectivity-driven strategy. The first one is that Nepal is geographically a landlocked country and therefore faces high trading cost. So connectivity-driven strategy could improve reduce such cost and promote internal trade, investment, and economic growth. Secondly, Nepal is strategically located between two economic giants, India and China, and Nepal has the potential to benefit great by improving connectivity with its neighbor through transport, energy, and telecommunication projects. It may help Nepal by reducing transit costs, trading cost, and to overcome the disadvantage of a small population and a small market. And thirdly, a connectivity-driven strategy is not a new one for Nepal. In the past, Nepal was strategically located on the southwestern Silk Road SSR, which started in People's Republic of China's Xi-nan province, then passed through Myanmar to India and to Nepal, and looped back through Tibet to, again, Yunnan. So Nepal was more precisely an interport for trade, mainly between India and People's Republic of China and southwestern Silk Road. So in addition to that, when we talk about or try to look into the role of geography in cross-border connectivity, it seems that the geographical complexities often impede cross-border connectivity, when geographical proximity may relatively promote it. this is I think the core assumption of the paper as well, how geographical complexity often impede cross-border connectivity, while at the same time geographical proximity may relatively promote it. And the same propositions could be applied in Nepal's cross-border connectivity with India and with China. Because if we look at the Nepal-China railways, we hear a lot of noises, but nothing has been done. Only like pre-feasibility report has been prepared, and during the visit of the Xi Jinping, China decided to provide a grant to conduct a kind of feasibility report. So this is the progress that we have seen. But if we look at the cross-border connectivity between Nepal and India, then we see that there has been the completion of the cross-border, the pipeline projects, the Ramayana circuit, the cross-border transportation since 2005, like 53 process plies between Nepal and India borders. Then we also see the resumption of the friendship, pass between India and Nepal. Then at the same time, there are some other cross-border connectivity projects that are underway, like even cross-border railway between India and Nepal. Some of the like the railway tracks has been already built. So I'll come to that in later. But before that, let me just describe something about the role of geography in cross-border connectivity. If you look at, then over 90% of Nepal frontiers with China run through uninhabited altitudes with rocks and snows, glacier and ice fields. And if you look at the world's the world's tallest mountains, and even the 8 tallest mountains, including the Kanchenjunga and Mount Everest, are located in Nepal's northern region bordering with Tibet. And it points to the geographical complexity in front of cross-border connectivity. But when we look at the Nepal-India cross-border connectivity, among the Indian states, Nepal borders Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, West Bengal, Uttarakhand, and Sikkim. Because of the open border existing between the two countries, people from both the countries are free to cross the border from any point, either in bus or taxi or public and private transportation. And it points to the geographical simplicity in front of the cross-border connectivity. And meanwhile, open borders with India is a British legacy. Even Janakpur, that is in Nepal, and Jayanagar, that is in India, the Janakpur-Jayanagar track itself was built nearly 86 years ago during the British rule in India, with the objective of transporting timber from the forest of Bhattarai, that is in Nepal, to India. But because of the geographical complexity with China, cross-border connectivity with Tibet of China till 1949 was confined to long journey of Newari traders. The Newari merchants, particularly from Kathmandu, they were using mules and donkeys to carry their goods to Tibet through the risky snow-capped mountains. So it also points to the contrast between, or the binary opposition of the simplicity and complexity in terms of the cross-border connectivity. But the role of geography further elaborating the role of geography in cross-border connectivity, the complexity with China, however, downsized with the construction of the Araniko Highway in 1960s. But when China shut down the Kodari border, crushing and evacuated its citizens from the Kodari to nearby town of Sigatse, China today prioritizes Raswa border over Kodari. Because what we see is that the distance from Raswa border with China to India border is quite shorter than from Kodari borders. And the next one is the role of environment I'm trying to discuss on after the role of geography. Because the debate of environment and economics, or the ecology and development, has raised many cross-border connectivity projects, including BBIN. Because the 4 countries like Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, Nepal, they made an agreement in Bhutan's capital Thimphu in June 2015 to allow the plying of vehicle passengers, both passengers and cargo vehicles, among themselves. But Bhutan's rejection of the ratification of the 2015 BBIN motor vehicle agreement, citing environmental concerns, laid an obstruction against member states' previous desire to ply their vehicle in each other's territory. But still what we see is that India, Nepal, and Bangladesh have already ratified the BBIN motor vehicle agreement, but it is still yet to bear a it is still to bear a fruit. Although a successful trial run of 2 buses with delegates from 3 nations had set up from Bangladeshi capital Dhaka that reached Kathmandu by Siliguri in India I think in April 2018, that covers a distance of almost like 1,197 kilometers. And in addition to the role of geography and role of environment in cross-border connectivity, I would like to briefly touch upon the role of Asian highways, because while we try to assess the role of Asian physical infrastructure in Nepal's cross-border connectivity with India and China, Asian highway plays a vital role, because Nepal is connected by two Asian highways, and they are Asian Highway 2 and Asian AH2 and AH42. Okay, and these are the two Asian highways that Nepal is connected with, and the total length of these two sectors within the country is 1,324 kilometers. So AH2 originates from Dhaka in Bangladesh and ends in New Delhi in India, but it can be further linked with other Asian highway network. Similarly, AH42 originates from Bari, that is in Jharkhand in India, and ends in Lhasa in China. So coming back to the cross-border connectivity projects in Nepal, of Nepal with India and China. So I would like to identify the 4 projects. The first one is India-Nepal cross-border petroleum pipeline that has been completed. The second one is Ramayana Circuit and cross-border transportation between Nepal and India. The third one is Nepal-India cross-border railways. The fourth one is Nepal-India inland waterway projects. And the fifth one is Nepal-China cross-border railway projects. So starting with the Nepal-India cross-border petroleum pipeline, Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli and his Indian counterpart Narendra Modi jointly inaugurated the Nepal-India cross-border petroleum pipeline in the September of 2019. But both the Prime Ministers switched on the Asia's first ever cross-border petroleum pipeline from the respective offices in Singhdarbar, Kathmandu and Hyderabad, House New Delhi by a video conference. And since then, the 69-kilometer long pipeline transports fuel from India Barauni refinery in Bihar to Amleganj in Nepal. And actually, India and Nepal had signed in August 2015 a pact for the construction of the cross-border petroleum pipeline, and it made its completion in 2018, and that was really interesting because now what we see is that it can significantly reduce the leakages and wastage, and with the less use of tankers to carry fuel, it will also have a significant impact on the environment. And at the same time, it is expected to hugely reduce Nepal's fuel import costs. And coming back to Ramayana Circuit, what we see is that once again, Prime Minister Oli and Prime Minister Modi, they announced the opening of Ramayana Circuit from the premises of Janaki Temple in Janakpur Dham in 2018. And it clearly shows that as Sita and Ram serve as the foundation for Nepal-India relation, it is needed to focus on connectivity between Janakpur and Ayodhya, apart from developing them as twin cities. Such activities could also help promote socio-cultural relations between two countries. The entire region in the stretch of 622-kilometer distance between the Janakpur and Ayodhya are likely to develop, particularly in agriculture, industrial, transport, and tourism sectors once the Ramayana Circuit project is materialized. And the launch of Janakpur Ayodhya bus service formally makes Janakpur a part of Ramayana Circuit now. And when talking about cross-border transportation between Nepal and India, a transportation agreement was signed between Nepal and India in 2004 for the regulation of passenger vehicular transport through 5 border crossing points, including Mahendranagar, Nepalganj, Bhairava, Birganj, and Kakarvita. All 5 are the border crossing points with India. And in order to connect the different border districts of Nepal with Indian cities like New Delhi, Kolkata, Patna, Varanasi, a provision was made for plying 53 buses on the agreed route from each side. Similarly, a friendship bus service between Nepal and India resumed in 2016 after a gap of 27 years, much to the delight of the people on either side of the borders who have family and trade ties with each other. But what I would like to mention here is that in the year 2016, Kathmandu-Lhasa bus service stopped. After 2 years, when a transport agreement was signed between Nepal and India in 2004, Kathmandu-Lhasa bus service stopped in 2006, and particularly, most probably, it was due to political instability in Nepal and also because of China's strategic engagement in Tibet. Because Saja Yatayat, a public sector transport company in Nepal, used to operate a twice-weekly bus service between Kathmandu and Lhasa from May 1st, 2005. The bus service was disrupted when China refused to give visas to the concerned individuals. And interesting is that the bus service could not be resumed even during the Beijing Olympics in 2000. So now coming back to Nepal-India cross-border railways, the 5 cross-border railway projects have been proposed. Yes.
Actually, the time is up. Would you please conclude briefly? Because we have,
just let me.
Sorry, because of the connectivity loss, we couldn't. We had a loss of time.
There are a lot of things. I'm just moving into the conclusion part. Although cross-border connectivity promotes regional development, although it facilitates unimpeded trade, but when it comes to Nepal's, cross-border connectivity projects with India and China, then what we see is that the land procurement is the major challenge. Land procurement is the first challenge, and second challenge, if we try to identify when it comes to Nepal-China, railways, then topography, weather, hydrology, and cost. These are the 4 major challenges: topography, weather, hydrology, and cost. And above all, tunneling is another challenge, because if you look at the preliminary studies that put the cost of just like 170 kilometer Kerem to Kathmandu section of railway at around like 38 billion yuan or $5.5 billion. Even though only 30% of the length from Menbu to Kathmandu is in Nepal, it will account for almost half the cost of the project because of the required tunneling. So tunneling is another challenge, and let me add another challenge. Then I'll just end. I think infrastructure challenge, geopolitical challenge, environmental challenge, and economic challenges. These 4 are major challenges that are faced by Nepal-China railways. But still, we cannot ignore the fact that even when we talk about the Nepal-India cross-border connectivity projects, then if we just draw EPG reports or eminent persons groups report here, then what it has clearly mentioned in its last meeting is that controlled borders. They have already advised on the controlled borders, but controlled borders should not be diminishing the spirit of cross-border connectivity between India and Nepal. And even the issue of border insecurity, encroachment, smuggling that are reported in Nepal-India borderlands should be prevented. And at the same time, to make a final line, unlike Nepal-China railways that faces hurdles because of the terrain, finance, and now because of the COVID, I think the financial or the funding challenges has aggravated. The construction of railway lines between India and Nepal is less challenging, I think. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the wonderful presentation by Mr. Gaurav Bhattarai. He has talked very insightful talk on the challenges of connectivity between the India-China connectivity projects as well as Nepal-China connectivity projects, and also what role does India-China connectivity projects play in making the trilateral relationship between the 3 countries a very good strategy for a connectivity driven economic development. So let us, before posing questions to him, we can go to the next speaker, who is Professor Xi-nan. Professor Xi-nan is a professor at the Institute of South Asian Studies, Sichuan University. His areas of research are international relations with focus on India-China relations, comparative literature, Indian literature, and history of China studies in India. So his topic today is Sino-Indian-Nepal cultural context in the post-COVID-19 era. So I would hand over to Professor Xi-nan to give his presentation. So you may unmute yourself. Yeah.
Namaste. Good afternoon,
Namaste.
all my friends in India and Kathmandu in Nepal. And I'd like to introduce myself in brief before my formal presentation. You can see this statue, Ganesha, is from Kathmandu, and Vila from New Delhi this January. In fact, I'm a novel for Indian literature, especially Sanskrit, Sankita Shastra, and Anangara Shastra. And in the past 4 years, I finished my translation of this work, Nadia Shastra. Recently, I have already translated chapter 7 of this work, Sankita Gala. And I will move on this book from South India. And this book, every Hindu knows the book, Markandeya Purana. So I'm not a scholar of Sino-India relation, but a scholar of Sanskrit literature and Sankita Shastra, Anangara Shastra. So when Dr. Geeta Kochhar invited me to be a participant here, I have some hesitation. She encouraged me to be here to talk about something about Sino-India-Nepal cultural contexts. Okay, fine. So today, I just focus on the triangle cultural cooperation between the three countries. So far as my knowledge, as my experience concerned, between China and Nepal, between China and India, between India and Nepal, there are a lot of cultural contacts recently and historically. But for the time being, if you focus on the triangle cultural contacts or cooperation or interaction, we are not, we are much pessimistic and not optimistic. In Chinese, 我们很悲观，我们不乐观 because Dr. Geeta Kochhar knows Chinese well, so I say some Chinese words to you. 面对这种情况，我们一点都不乐观，我们很悲观 ，pessimistic， 我们很悲观。So, I'd like to tell you, friends, here, why are we so pessimistic about triangle cultural contacts between the three countries? Because of politics, because of something imagined before us. When we talk about Sino-India relation, talk about India-Nepal relation, and China-Nepal relation, politics, economy, foreign policy goes first or second. But for literature, for culture, for Sanskrit, for Nepal language, always lag behind much. So for the triangle cultural cooperation between the three countries, I'm not so optimistic. I'm always pessimistic. For example, 2 years ago in Chengdu, we held a Buddhist international conference. But at that time, Nepal ambassador Lila Madi was there, but India ambassador was absent. So, for my opinion, in my opinion, for Sino-India-Nepal cultural contacts, we have a lot of work to do. So, Dr. Geeta Kochhar and all the participant friends here, let's come together, shoulder by shoulder, hands by hands. 我们一起努力，我们必须一起努力。Because for a better Sino-India-Nepal relation, we should do some more work culturally and linguistically and other things. Otherwise, we have no basement, we have no base to strengthen our triangle relation or triangle cooperation, because literature, language, history can link, can contact the three countries' people fastly, quickly, and how to say, and healthily. So this is my main idea of my presentation. But you see, as far as my knowledge concerned, nowadays between India and Nepal, between China and Nepal, we have done a lot of good work. You have done a lot of work. When I purchased some Sanskrit book in Natila Bantala, Natila Pustaka Bantala in Kathmandu, much to my surprise, because this bookshop in Kathmandu can directly have some Sanskrit book from New Delhi, from Kolkata, from maybe Varanasi, Patela, Lucknow, so easily. So, in my opinion, India and Nepal have always been friends based on health and better cultural cooperation, literature context. But between China and Nepal, between China and India, the situation is quite unsimilar. So, what can I do for the three countries' scholars? In my opinion, for India scholar should have more and more scholars to study Sino-India cultural relation, to focus on research on Chinese language, Hanyu, to do some research on Chinese literature, Chinese history, Chinese language. For Nepal, for Kathmandu scholars, you should have more scholars to study Sino-Nepal cultural relation, Sino-India cultural relation, and to have more scholars who focus on Chinese language, Chinese literature, Chinese history. And for Chinese scholars, we should have more scholars who have a best mastery of Nepal language, of Sanskrit, Tamil, Punjabi, Bengali, Gujarati, and Malayalam, and Hindi. So this is my suggestion. But you see, all my friends here, maybe most of you just focus on in politics, foreign policy, and economy. Only me, myself, Professor Yin, who has been a student of 4 India gurus, only myself focus on literature and history and language. So sometimes most of the time I feel lonely, because even I suggest once again and again, but few scholars in Nepal, few scholars in India focus on Chinese language, focus on translation of Chinese works. So many times I feel unhappy. When I talk about to my Chinese friends in Beijing, they encourage me to continue my work. They said that anyway, one day or more, the tomorrow of Sino-India relations, the tomorrow of the world affairs will be better and better. So I insist on my research work. I insist on my translation of Natya Shastra and Sankita Shastra. So I will tell you one sentence or two as my conclusion of my presentation. For Sino-India-Nepal scholars between the three countries, the area for us to be involved should be how to say Sanskrit study at first, because in Kathmandu and New Delhi and Madras, Kolkata, Bombay, Anand, and other cities, I saw a number of Nepal scholars and India scholars who focus on Sanskrit study. And in China, we have a research tradition of Sanskrit because of Buddhist transmission into China in the ancient times. So Sanskrit study will be our scholars in the 3 countries to cooperate, to do some cooperation work. And the second one, and the second research field should be Buddhism, because in India, you have Nalanda University, you have Salalata Temple. We have a good Sanskrit scholar. He is later Professor Jin Kermu. Jin Kermu was studying Sanskrit in Salalata Temple in BHU, Balalata Hindu University. And we have a good scholar Xi-nan, and he translates Ramayana, and Huan Baoxing, who translates Mahabharata. And now Professor Yin, myself, translate Nadia Shastra. So we should have more and more scholars who focus on Buddhism. And number 3, we should have more and more scholars in the 3 countries to do some cooperation work on Nepal history and India history. Last time, one of my Nepal friends, Ajit asked his brothers in Guangzhou to send me 3 volumes of Nepal history. And I told my friends in Nepal, they encouraged me to translate the whole volume of Nepal history into Chinese. But I have no time because my main focus is Natya Shastra, Purana, and Sankirta Shastra, Anagara Shastra. So Dr. Geeta Kochhar and my friends in India, in Kathmandu, you please ask more friends. We come together to translate Chinese history into Hindi, Bengali, Punjabi, Marathi, Malayalam, Kannada, and Nepali language. And we should have translate more Nepali book and India book into Chinese. So we 3 countries can do more work culturally and historically in this field. And last one, I have a suggestion for the 2 countries, the scholars from the 2 countries, that's Nepal and India. And Dr. Geeta Kochhar, especially for you, please organize more and more such work similar to today's. And we 3 countries scholars should have more chance to come together. We should have more chance to open our minds through dialogue, cultural dialogue, not political dialogue, not economic dialogue, not diplomatic dialogue, but cultural dialogue, linguistic dialogue, and literary dialogue. So that's my main idea. Thank you for Dr. Geeta Kochhar's warm-hearted invitation. Thank you, all my friends. All my friends, you are sincerely invited to to visit Sichuan University. 朋友们，欢迎你们所有的学者们都访问四川大学。Okay, see you next time in Sichuan, in Beijing, or in Kathmandu, in New Delhi, in China. Okay. So next week. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your wonderful presentation. And actually, we agree with you, whatever you have said. You said that you were pessimistic about the trilateral cultural context because most of the scholars just focus on politics or economics and foreign policies. But you should also see that we, as students of Chinese, are also studying the language culture in JNU. And many students are also doing their PhD. So definitely you should also be optimistic about all this. And the reason why this should be happening, because culture is the interaction between people of the of the region, and people-to-people contacts are the defining factor in connectivity. People-to-people contacts are actually defining factor in connectivity. So if the people-to-people contacts are good, connectivity will naturally be good. So as Professor In has pointed out, that Indian scholars should learn Chinese language, culture, literature, and Nepal scholars should do the same. And even Chinese scholars should learn about the culture, literature, language of both the countries. So this is a very good suggestion. Thank you very much, Professor In, for your valuable suggestions. Now I would request the next speaker, Shri Govind Shah ji, to speak. Shri Govind Shah is an environmental planner and environmental and social safeguard expert at freelance associated with CRISIL India since early 2018, and has more than 30 years of experience in environmental planning and assessment, natural resource management, environmental and social impact assessment of various infrastructure projects. Today he is going to talk to us about the ecological and environmental challenges of connectivity and infrastructure projects in Nepal. So I hand the presentation over to Shri Govind Shah ji. Sir, please unmute yourself.
Yeah. So
yes, sir, you are visible.
So I'm visible, but how to get my slides?
Yeah, sir, you just first open your slide.
Yeah, it is already open.
Okay, so press on the share screen button here, and
Yes.
then in the box you select your slide.
Yes. Okay. Can I see now?
Not yet. Just a minute.
Can I see the slides?
Yeah, yes. Do it again, please. We cannot see. We are unable to see.
All right.
Can you share it once again? Share screen.
Yes.
And then
go to
the file, the window that is open.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Now we can. It's starting up. Yeah. So just press the full screen mode so that everyone can see.
Full screen. How to do that? 48%.
So the icon beside minus. Icon beside minus. Not that.
Okay.
Other part. The left side icon. The icon that is left to the minus sign.
Left to the minus.
No, not this. Don't move this one. Don't move this one. Just move the other icon.
Just leave it, and the left to the, not that one. The left other side.
This one.
Just yes.
All right. It's okay now?
Yeah, it's okay.
All right. Okay.
So please start your presentation.
Okay. Good afternoon. We have had very good session this morning and now about this connectivity and trilateral relations and all sorts of things. And this is completely different. Here I'll be talking more on the ecology and environment of these initiatives. Just let me to start, to say about 95% or more, of the Nepal's transit takes place from India, through India, and 65% of its trades in India. And China is the second trading partner. And all it started in the last 5 years, this connectivity initiatives and also things got started, So it was in 2016, the use of the roads and ports in China to be used by Nepal for cargo and that sort of thing. And the MOU was signed in 2018. But they think that, the people think that it's very expensive, it's more costly than using the Indian ports. And both India and China got involved in developing connectivity in Nepal. We talked about vision and everything this morning, so nothing much to say about it. And here, the Nepal's interest is prosperity. Prosperous Nepal through developing a sound transport infrastructure, a bridge linking the two giants, And then India and China's interests are completely different in the sense that it's a transit route in the long run, connectivity, something like a regional plan, and cooperation and engagement means anyhow, it's just economic growth and development in all these countries. And here, just a minute, okay, Nepal, China, the connectivity interests are, or just involvement, is say road and rail transport and hydropower and solar. These are the major infrastructures. And Nepal and India is say road, rail, water transport, and hydropower. These are the 4 different sectors. And investment mode is financial, grant or loan, and technical assistance. And whereas in hydropower sector, it is mostly commercial venture. And all these 3 countries we just see, we see that Nepal, what Nepal has done so far. We just planned east-west railway highway. And conception, it was developed in 2017. Railway department was established. And then feasibility study was done in 2012. And that east and west railway, it covers about 24 districts and in the Tarai plains and the Shivaliks and about 10 tunnels, and it is 945 kilometers long. And then feasibility, the main thing, another, this limitation is the fund, So in 2012, estimated about $3 billion, and now estimated to be about $5 billion. And by the time it gets started, it could go around $6 to $7 billion. So a lot of money. And Nepal government has already spent about 11 billion Nepalese rupees till 2019, and is spending every year about 4 billion. And Nepal is expecting financial assistance from government of Nepal, but nothing much, have come up. And then Nepal and India. So it is the phase 1, that is the Kathmandu-Raksol railway project. And then pre-feasibility survey was done in 2019. It was submitted to the government of Nepal. We don't hear much about it now. And it is good that they have given alternative routes, based on the gradients. And one is 135 kilometers, another is 200 kilometers. And there are 40 to 50 tunnels. And the elevation range, that could be one problem, that it starts at 200 feet elevation to 4,400 feet in about 135 kilometers. And then cost estimated is about $1 billion that time, in 2019. And then phase 1, another project is 30 kilometer Janakpur-Jayanagar Railway. It started developed in 1927, and then small gauge, now reconstructed, 2014, but it's still not completed in the last 6 years. It's very delayed implementation. Then they have phase 2 projects, connecting Nepal, India cross-border rail link. So there are about 4 or 5 projects, but still in the pre-feasibility stage, it has not been completed. And then the most important is the development of waterways. Development for the efficient movement of cargo through Ganges River. Additional access to sea at Kolkata for Nepal. And there are 2 rivers they want to use it. One is the Gandak River and the other is the Kosi River. And both they join at Hajipur and Kursiala. And the confluence of these rivers with Ganges are the points to link Nepal to the sea. And very preliminary study has been done so far. Waterways Study Committee in Nepal and Waterways Authority of India, they conducted some preliminary study. So it is very early stage, And then the other is the postal road that is 300 kilometers running across Tarai Plain area. And it started in 2006, but very sad to say that it is still not completed. And then with China, so we think in three different ways: India, Nepal, India, Nepal, China. And the BR1, it was signed in 2017. And the proposed railway link, it is from Lhasa to Khairang, and Kathmandu, and from Kathmandu to Pokhara, and Kathmandu to Lumbini in India. So it is a very, connecting road, joining Lhasa to North India. And then Khairang, Kathmandu, yes. This is a 170 kilometer long road, railway, to Kathmandu through Khairang. And, it's only about 68 kilometers, that is Khairang to Kathmandu. And the feasibility study was done in 2018, but it was not made public. So we don't know anything about it, not much. And the railway, it was considered that railway from Lhasa to Khairang would arrive sometime 2020, but now it is 2025. So they are delaying it. And this railway is about 98% of the route will tunnels and bridges. So it is very different, technologically, it's very difficult to say whether it could be feasible or not. A lot of study has to be done. And then, and it's the same problem, the climbing, 4,700 feet to 13,200 feet in 68 kilometers. That is another big technical challenge, because we talk about the policies, politics, and other things, but these things are very, very different, Okay, and then preliminary report puts the cost at about $5.5 billion. And Nepal cannot afford that. So Nepal is seeking a grant from China to construct the railway, but China has remained silent and quiet. China may provide loan. And that is a big thing, how to consider it, whether they will consider it or not. A lot of other things, aspects are there. No feasibility report is prepared for Kathmandu-Pokhara railway and Kathmandu-Lumbini railway. Nothing has been done. So whatever BRI project is there, it is just on the very initial stage. Now we talk about these challenges, environmental challenges, what we face. Generally, we don't discuss this on any international, seminars or things like that. All these proposed India, Nepal, China connectivity infrastructures are located in 3 physiographic zones. Outer Himalaya, that is the Tarai Plain and Shivalik Range, and the Lesser Himalaya, that the hills, and the Greater Himalaya, we call the high mountains. About 300 feet to 9,000 feet elevation. Subtropical to alpine nature. And environmental degradation, ecological imbalance, and climate change impacts are increasingly high in the Nepal Himalaya. Nepal suffers high economic costs due to climate stress and other environmental degradation. And again, in the Tarai areas, we have the flooding incidences increasing every year. We did a study back in 2005, and in that study, I found that every 5 years, there are chances of flooding in Tarai. But now, within 15 years, we see every year flooding situation. So these are the another issues. these shivaliks are fragile, very, very fragile. And landslides and mass movement and tectonic movement are increasing the chances of seismicity in hills and mountains, especially in the high mountain areas. And Nepal is now considered the fourth most vulnerable country in the world, environmentally and ecologically. It's very vulnerable stage. Vulnerable areas in the connectivity projects. If we just consider east-west railway in Raksol, Kathmandu, railway passes through, it's a Chitwan National Park, that's the World Heritage Site, Parsa National Park, and Bardia National Park, this east-west railway. And the proposed route has been criticized for threatening rare wildlife. UNESCO has rejected the proposed route because it was prepared in 2012 and they have rejected it. And again, the proposed route passes through flood zone of Bhattarai and fragile shivaliks. So these are the hindrances. And now the current Karung-Kathmandu railway, it passes through greater Himalayan region, having high incidence of landslides and mass movement, as well as tectonic movement. That is geologically, it's a Indian plate joining the Eurasian plate, and that movement causes landslides and the earthquakes and also things. Again, the Langtang and Sipurin parks are located in the proposed route. The pre-feasibility reports list 6 extremes, including topography, weather, hydrology, and tectonics. And the proposed route also cuts through the mountains near a major fault line, very susceptible to earthquakes. So that may be one of the reasons why the Chinese, government, they're a bit silent on this issue of railway connection. Okay, this climate change adaptation and environmental management. We have to adopt salient features of international agreements and environmental protocols. And they think that all these 3 countries, they are very strong in policy levels in ecological and environmental issues. They're very big, Theoretically, they prepare very good environmental reports, but lack in implementation of environmental mitigation. While China is performing better in ecological enhancement programs compared to India and Nepal, but they are very much criticized for neglecting environmental issues in other countries where they implement projects. My experience in Tanzania and Uganda, because we're working on a hydropower project, and we found that we had a good conversation with them, and that is what the issue is, So that is another problem. And okay, sorry, yes. The major issue, what we environmentalists find, that the political and technical issues dominate railway connectivity discussions all the time, but not ecological or environmental. Parks or conservation officials are never contacted. That means, when we are developing something, we have to consider those aspects, but usually we just neglect them. We think that, anyhow, that could be solved later stage. Considering the ecological environmental vulnerability of the Himalayan country, Nepal, emphasis must be given on environmental planning process while developing and finalizing connectivity projects. That means considering this environmental and ecological and now the climate change, similarly or at the same time or simultaneously with the policy when we discuss those things there. whether that is feasible or not. Politically may be feasible, but we got to see whether they are ecologically, because we have to consider projects not only on economical viable projects or socially acceptable, but also ecologically balanced and environmentally sound projects. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. These are some of the suggestions I have made here. At the moment, I think it would be better to conduct a strategic environment assessment of railway projects in the whole country, because strategic assessment we do for policy, because we are at the policy level now. We are not at the project level, in fact, So we are just discussing various factors, whether that policy of connectivity is working or not, whether it will work or not. So it is a strategic environment assessment. First, we can do that. And then later on, then we have to do the EIA of individual projects, because we have there about 10 to 12 projects. So we have to do that. And to do environmental projects, environmental investigation, it takes about 1 year to 2.5 years. Sometimes even 3 years. It delays. So we have to consider that period that it will be required, and we have to give due consideration to that fact. And another thing is that when we work on the environmental EIA impact assessments reports, we have been considering only the national requirement, but it is not, because just say like Nepal or India has signed many international agreements, so they have to follow that. Otherwise we get into controversy a lot, and sometimes the project doesn't get implemented. Yeah, this is most important. What I found in the last couple of years in these countries like Nepal, and I work in Bhutan and Vietnam and many other countries. They say economics, ecology, and socioculture have been playing a greater role in developing sustainable infrastructure projects. Those three factors we have been studying very hard, But observation in recent years indicate that politics playing a major role. And that's what I observed in this trilateral relationship or any initiatives supported by these three countries. Like variables in politics, such as organization and governance, what type of governance system you have, whether that is compatible to donor agency or not. Donor agency in the sense India or China. Law and justice, representation and negotiation. How do we represent ourselves, and what are the negotiation capacity we have of that governing body? And security and accord, these are important factors. And at the end, ethics and accountability. Whether the governing system has some ethics or following some ethical norms or not, and whether it's accountable to the people and the government. Largely, it is, in developing and so while implementing the projects, now politics has come in, and we are forgetting economics, ecology, and sociocultural practices. So this is what I find in this going through many reports or papers on this issue of connectivity. Thank you very much. Just one thing, I'll show you with just 2 slides. It won't take more than 2 minutes. Can you see this? Okay.
No, please share the screen again.
Oh, share the screen?
Yeah, yes.
Oh, no.
Sorry, I thought that you had completed, so I closed
No,
it.
that's okay.
So open the presentation and share screen, and that's okay.
The presentation is open. Okay, share the screen. All right.
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, let's say this is the
So
Nepal.
can you do the full screen, please?
All right.
Yes.
It's okay. All right. Yeah. This is the Nepal's proposal. This is the from Kakarvitra, this east and the west. This is the east-west line. It passes through the Tarai plains and then goes to the Shivaliks and again to Tarai. And these are the connecting, you know, they say India-Nepal connecting railways, you know. And then from here, you know, they plan to, you know, go to Pokhara and other places. Then this is all in totality. And this is very important. Not many people know about this because very recently, these waterways, you know, it has become a big joke in Nepal, as a matter of fact, you know, whether it is possible or not. But there is a very big possibility about this project because this is the Kosi River and this is Gandak River. And here, this is the conference at Hajipur. So in just in Ganges River, India had just started it, you know, it's just a couple of years. So they can use it for cargo. But here in these rivers, maybe the depth is not much, but they can do it with dredging. You know, they can make it about 4 to 5 meter or 6 meter deep and they can use that. So from here to Kursela to, this is the Kosi River and this is the Indian border. So they will have here, and there is a dam now here. So, you know, the ship cannot go up. So there should be some other mechanism, you know, unless there is a upper Kosi dam and there is a flow, this it cannot go to that point. So even here it will be much easier, it will be much closer. And similarly here, you know. So this is very early phase, you know. So they had some couple of meetings and they just left it now. So maybe some political problems and all. And then they say China BRI, you know, from this is Lhasa, I suppose, Kerala and then Kathmandu coming to this place, you know, Bareni, and then from here to Pokhara and from here to Lumbini, you know. And maybe another they have planned this way. But the major problem, geological problem is this site, you know, if they can overcome. And the expenditure is very high in this high mountains. The gradient is very high. So whether technically possible or not, you know, that a good study had to, you know, do. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your wonderful presentation. You have definitely talked about a very different aspect of connectivity that everyone needs to put the focus on. You need to see the feasibility of different connectivity projects also, while not damaging the environment and ecology. So environmental problems are to be talked about by the scholars so as to have a greater connectivity, you know, project between the three nations. So you have talked about how we can improve the connectivity between the three countries, and the way forward should be you know, focusing on the issues of environment and ecological aspects. So thank you very much for your presentation. Now we are in the discussion part where we can, you know, we can raise the questions to the speakers. So please, anyone from the Yes, you can, ask questions. Actually, there is a comment by Dr. Diki Bhutia. He has also commented on Professor In's presentation that I agree with you, Professor In. More and more student exchange programs should be conducted between India and Nepal and China, so more knowledge can be gathered about each other countries, as cultural ties can bring near to one another. So actually he has agreed with you, and he is, I would ask you whether there would be any exchange programs between the three countries, like the scholars can go on scholarship to China, the Sichuan University, to have a joint study of some sort on the cultural aspects of the three countries. Professor In?
So far as my knowledge is concerned, for Sino-India Director Scholarly Exchange in Sichuan University, we have done some work on this field. But because I'm not how to say coordinate in this field, you can ask Dr. Geeta to ask Dr. Zheng Xianyu for such information. Dr. Zheng is a coordinator in my institute. He actually has been involved in this field for many years. Who knows this? But to my limited knowledge alone, one professor from Jeju, who is Mahendra Nama, who is colleague of Dr. Geeta Kochhar. Dr. Geeta Kochhar should have known the person. Professor Mahendra Nama, who is Vice Chancellor of Sikkim University years ago, he has been here to have taught us students for about more than 2 years. This January, he with other India friends treated me in New Delhi. That is my my knowledge. And for students exchange, we have done a lot of work, especially for myself, Professor Yin, myself. In the past 4 years or 5 years, I guide 4 Indian girls from Jeju who study Sino-India relations, who study Chinese economy. And I also guide some Nepali girls and boys for the research work. Maybe about 3 to 4 Nepali students and 4 Indian girls. And this is a promising field, promising, how to say, project. Now, this doctor give us a better suggestion. Let's say, not between 2 countries, India and China, but between 3 countries, India, Nepal, and China. If we have funds, we have a foundation work, we have some money to support the triangle funds, triangle cooperation project. That's better. Let's say in Chinese, I'd like to tell you in Chinese, especially for Dr. Geeta Kochhar, who has the best mastery of Chinese language. 如果印度、中国与尼泊尔，我们3个国家，有一个专门的基金来资助中印尼3方的青年学生交换奖学金项目，那就非常好了啊。If we have a special foundation work to support the youngsters from 3 countries to come together to do some cooperation work in other countries, that's better. So I should not waste you more time. Thank you, Dr. Snehal, Ulman. Okay, that's all.
Thank you very much. Actually, there was one more comment during the presentation of Balasubramanian C. So the comment was that does the fear lie whether the cheap Chinese goods will substitute Indian products in Nepal, or are they actually concerned that the goods are actually not good from Nepal's economy and health? So can you comment on that? There's a question. It's not a question actually, it's a comment. So can you speak about it?
Myself?
No, not you, sir. Balasubramanian.
Okay, sorry.
It's okay, sir. Are you there? I think he has left maybe. So can anyone answer this or comment on this? Maybe Dr. Geeta Kochhar can give us some insight or something. Or
no, I think it's a very genuine concern, because if you see the anti-dumping cases globally, not just India, many of the countries have filed against China. There are serious concerns of the cheap goods being floated to other countries, and it is not just an Indian concern, and it is not just a concern that Nepal would be flooded by the low quality products, or the goods would be cheap or whatever. These are the concerns even in Vietnam. I mean, I went to Vietnam. Even Vietnamese were very concerned about the flooding of these Chinese goods, and they started having something like made in Vietnam shops, where it was openly stated that we are not going to have Chinese goods. We are going to have our own goods. So promotion of their own stuff. India anyway is talking about Make in India, and we are concerned about it. And I think Nepal, because its economy would have a major blow, especially after this COVID thing, definitely needs to go indigenous. It needs to promote its own products. It needs to export its products. So it has to really rethink about how that relationship works. Already, I mean, Professor Huang in the first session has said that the China-Nepal bilateral relationship is not as high as it is in Sri Lanka or Pakistan. But definitely there is a chance of, more of Chinese goods flooding into Nepal, and Nepal would not be able to export anything. So those things, I think Nepalese government needs to be, taking into consideration. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, your answer was very good. I hope that Miss Hindu has got her answer. Actually, Balasubramanian is nowhere to be seen. Maybe he has left for maybe he had some work or something. So I hope your question is answered. And I think there are no more questions. And also the time is also up. So I think we should stop over here and take a 15-minute break. So we will resume the third session at 3:45, just in 15 minutes. Thank you. Thank you for your support, and thank you for coming to this webinar. Thank you.